Welcome to Discovery Watch with John Kaiser.
I'm Jim Goddard. Welcome back to the show, John.
Jim, it's a pleasure to be back on your show.
John, Midland Exploration released an update on its Mithril project last week. Have the chances for a great Canadian area play in Quebec's James Bay region improved?
They have not. The news release was a bit of a nothing burger in that it only gave results for the 5 holes that they have drilled on the 1,300-meter segment where they poked a dozen holes earlier this year, which they reported in early May. The market then was disappointed that the high-grade copper float that they found is coming from these fairly narrow zones, sort of granitic dikes that have intruded the granodiorite intrusion. And so these first 5 holes had very similar results. We know we have a large low-grade envelope within this intrusion. It's not just great smearing. And we know we have these in the contact between these granitic dikes and country rock intrusion. That's where the higher grade occurs. And what they found on surface was simply the surface expression of this getting frost heaved and tossed around. So not much has changed in that. Amongst the holes, they drilled one that was only 150 meters from the boundary with the Piqua project to the west of Azimuth Exploration. But I was fortunate that Midland Exploration was at the Sprott conference last week where I attended. Mario Masson, the VP of Exploration, was there, and I was able to chat with him and get a lot more color as to what is going on. I managed to get some disappointing things out of him. For example, there was this new chargeability high, which had this peculiar resistivity high associated with it that was just to the south of the main dipole-dipole anomaly, and there was hopes that this might be something deeper, but they had about 4 holes planned for that, and they drilled only one, and Mario didn't tell me, what they did encounter, but he kind of suggested we went and moved on to the other holes along strike. They've extended the system by about 1,800 meters to the northeast, and they've also drilled some holes into another IP anomaly that's sort of offset and that continues to go in the northeast direction before it starts to bend north. And when they published the IP survey maps, a month and a half ago, I was a bit puzzled as to why they were so excited about these other IP anomalies, which seemed to be weaker in comparison to the one that got everybody excited in the beginning of the year. And it turns out that the conglomerate unit that sits underneath, that sort of dips underneath the granodiorite intrusion, the magnetite within it is distorting the IP signature, so it's making it look a lot better than it is, and that could also be why there was this parallel anomaly, chargeability high, which didn't seem to amount to anything. So we have another 11 holes to come. They expect to have those in about 3 weeks, sort of late August. The drill right now is idle. They have completed a lake bottom sediment survey, and that'll be interesting because they've done that over the entire eastern part of the property, including right where they have been drilling. And this should compare. It'll be interesting to see how it compares with a similar study that Azimuth and SOQUEM did on the Piqua project in 2017, which they released earlier this year, that shows that to the west there is a substantial copper anomaly that did not show up in the much wider spaced government data from back in 2010 or sometime like that. And another interesting thing I got, they had a discrete EM conductor to the south, several kilometers south of this main zone area, not that far from the FCI West property of 92 Resources Corp. They drilled that, but did not explain the conductor. They don't think they're finished with this. They have confirmed that the bedrock is granodiorite, so that's better than in metasediments, where all kinds of things can be responsible for a conductor that have nothing to do with a metallic body. So they may be revisiting that down the road. But for now, the hopes are in those 11 holes that stretch to the west. frankly, I'm not sure that we're going to see anything different from what we saw in the 1,300 meters at the western end of the Mithril project. But the wide distribution of this copper mineralization, it gets the sense that something big, very large scale, was going on, and they've just started the exploration, and it may turn out it's just a big dispersed system that never concentrated anything. 92 Resources Corp put out a news release today that their field work on that FCI West property has also managed to come up with a whole bunch of chalcopyrite-bearing boulders. So also in several weeks, we'll find out from them if this kicks high-grade numbers, and we'll see if we got something going on there. But as far as a great Canadian area play in the James Bay region based on copper, at the moment, that seems to be a bit of a long shot. They'll have to surprise us with something significantly bigger and better later this month, and we'll see what they come up with when they resume drilling in September.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Cypress Development Corp is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Grand Portage Resources' Herbert Gold Project in southeast Alaska highlights increased gold resource, indicated and inferred, of 860,000 ounces, in excess of 10 grams per ton gold. Expansion drilling is planned on the Herbert Gold property for the summer of 2019. Grand Portage Resources trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with John Kaiser. John, Nevada Exploration provided an update for its South Grass Valley project. Do we have a discovery there yet?
Well, the CEO of Nevada Exploration, Inc., Wade Hodges, certainly thinks they have a huge discovery, but what the market wants to see is an ore-grade gold intersection, confirming that we do not just have a great big giant Carlin-style hydrothermal system with all the appropriate pathfinders, but that the gold managed to get hung up somewhere, and that we have the beginnings of a new discovery. They reported the results of hole 9 and did not include any assay tables, and that's because the bottom part of the hole, they included a strip log where you could sort of see how the arsenic and the mercury and the antimony and thallium all spike up in that bottom sort of 60 meters. And we also see gold spiking up to 50 ppb, but that's still just anomalous gold. They drilled hole number 10, got it down to the bedrock, and then while trying to set the casing, they managed to lose the hole. So they moved a little bit over and they drilled number 11. And when they reported last Thursday that they had the update, they said they had managed to reach a depth of 770 meters and encountered even better looking rock in terms of the sort of silicification and secondary pyrite and all this sort of stuff. They published some photos. Looks very similar to what Barrick is pulling from the 4 Mile zone, which is a deep target that's running, several ounces gold. It's different from the Gold Rush system, the 15 million ounce Gold Rush Breccia hosted system that's just to the south of this new discovery. In fact, interestingly, Barrick decided not to include the 4 Mile discovery in the joint venture that was formed with Newmont, pooling all the Nevada assets. So I have a suspicion those guys are sitting on something that's going to be very, very interesting. They don't yet know what the limits of it are, and so they're keeping it for themselves as something that can be vended into that joint venture later on. As far as Nevada Exploration Inc. is concerned, I heard that they did complete that hole number 11 over the weekend. It entered into rocks that were not as promising. It gives them a full section of the stratigraphic column. They've learned an awful lot about the stratigraphy, and in doing mapping of the range front and around, they're starting to put together a very interesting portrait of what's going on. And they're in the midst of doing more sampling for groundwater and mercury soil sampling to the southwest and to the south. They're extending this thing. It looks like they're now dealing with a 10 to 12 kilometer area, about 5 kilometers wide. And what's interesting, the first hole of the season, the dud that landed right smack in the middle of a Jurassic granite intrusion, that granite intrusion is starting to play a very important role as they understand the structural controls. So the sampling that they're doing is wrapping around on the flanks. To the south, there's outcropping upper plate rock and lower plate carbonates, which are all unaltered. But they've also got the same thing, Goodwin Butte, which sticks out in the gravels. It's also unaltered lower plate carbonates, and yet move over 100 meters, and you've got this extraordinary blanket of silicification, a couple 100 meters thick. You can't, of course, tell whether there's any gold in it. You have to wait for the assays, and they expect to get assays for this hole, which probably has the best shot yet of delivering that ore grade interval. The rest of the industry is still very skeptical, sitting on the sidelines, watching with horror over the possibility that this might actually be a major new discovery with a Carlin district scale potential. The company's being a bit coy about what it's doing beyond what it published. I think they're trying to figure out what the orientation of this whole structural trend is, so that when September rolls around, they have the results, they can show a substantially expanded land package. That's going to be a bit of a problem for some of the private placement placees whose stock comes free trading in the next week or so. They're going to have to decide whether they clip the warrant and flip the stock, or sit back and wait for the results. If the results in this sort of geological context deliver ore grade mineralization, well, then you have something that isn't just a potential 5 million ounce discovery. You're talking about a true Carlin type system that's got 50 to 100 million ounce potential. But until you get evidence that the gold got hung up in traps and that the conditions were right for flashing that gold into high grade zones, the market's going to be on the sidelines watching this play very carefully.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after the break.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, gold has made it through $1,500 an ounce faster than most people dreamed possible. Has this made a difference for any new discovery juniors we should be watching?
It's very interesting that the market is still quite reluctant to believe that this uptrend in gold is for real. The producers have responded. They're up 50% to 100%. The optionality plays to some degrees are starting to respond. But most of the optionality plays, the market's really waiting to see a gold go through $1,600 and show signs of that being the new base on the downside and the staging ground for higher prices down the road. For the discovery exploration juniors, it's still a tough slog. You need to deliver an intersection that catches the market's attention, that works at the metal prices that you have. And so a company that has responded, which is a kind of hybrid optionality play and discovery play is Balmoral Resources. And this company is run by Darren Wagner, who was also the CEO of West Timmins Mining, which was in partnership with Lakeshore Gold on the Thunder Creek project and the Timmins camp. They ended up being bought out in a merger with Lakeshore that valued West Timmins at about $460 million. And shortly after that, Darren Wagner showed up in this Balmoral Resources company. They acquired a bunch of projects from American Bonanza Gold Corp, which wanted to focus on its Arizona Copperstone project, and so these properties were mainly in the associated with the Sunday Lake Deformation Zone, which is one of those big regional structural breaks, and Detour Gold's Detour mine sits on the edge of this 20 million ounce system, sort of stretching over about four kilometers. It's now an open pit mine. It's had some teething problems, but Balmoral picked up what they called the Grasset and the Martiniere projects, and in the middle of it, they also picked up the Fenelon project, which is a high-grade gold system that a junior called Fairstar had worked during the 90s, and American Bonanza ended up with it, and there's a small number of ounces. They didn't do much with this particular project. They focused instead on doing sort of grassroots exploration, and they discovered the Bug Lake and the Martiniere West deposits, which are closer to the Detour Lake area, and they reported a resource early last year in 2018, about 644,000 ounces, split 2/3 open pit, 1/3 underground, and that's down to about 350 meters. It can go to another. They know the ore projects down to 700 meters, but the market was pretty unhappy and was hoping for 1 million ounces out of this project, and Balmoral had been sort of a pretty good trader during that 2012 to 2016 period. So Darren Wagner and his Balmoral have been in the doghouse for some time. Darren figures it would take about a $20 million program to properly delineate that the Martiniere zone between that 350 and 700 meter level, which is not going to happen in the current market. Though if we have a better gold market, then certainly they would be able to raise the capital to do that. But what has made this stock interesting and rise from sort of 12-14 cents limbo into the 25 cents level where it is now in the past few weeks is the Fenelon project, which they had sold several years ago for cash and stock to Wallbridge. They did this in 2016. They themselves didn't feel they could do very much with this. Deposit had maybe 50,000 ounces in it, and Wallbridge it's run by a bunch of mining guys headed by Alar Soaver, and they've been struggling to raise the capital to do the bulk sampling, to dewater the old workings, and to turn this into a cash flow story. And they started getting lucky last year when they were doing some deeper drilling and started intersecting those flashy high-grade gold numbers, 1 to 2 ounces over 2-4 meter type of situation, and showing that yes, this main Gabbro zone does extend deeper. It attracted Eric Sprott, for whom any high-grade gold, it's like the big flasher on your salmon rod that when he sees that come by, he can't but help strike at it. And he ended up buying out the Lonmin's block from the leftover from when Wallbridge was involved with a more platinum-oriented deal. And then in February this year, there was a significant breakthrough. While Wallbridge was drilling the Fenelon deposit from the west, drilling deep, it encountered a system of stockwork mineralization with higher grade veins in it within a Monzo diorite of the Jeremy Pluton to the west, which they didn't know extended that far south. And this is a different rock unit. And they call this now the Area 51 corridor. They realized that there is this sort of 4-kilometer long corridor, maybe 500 meters wide or so, to the west of the main Fenelon deposit, which is a completely different host rock that has, some affinities with Timmins style mineralization. And so that prompted Eric Sprott to inject another $7 million earlier this year. And so they have been drilling away. And Darren Wagner's watching this, and, Cheryl's have been throwing tomatoes at him. So why did you sell that Fenelon deposit? You should have done something with it. Now you could be, getting all this funding and excitement with the high grade. And he's looking at this Area 51 corridor and thinking to himself, this projects right onto our property. They own the land to the south. It's part of that whole Martiniere Grasset package that straddles the Sunday Lake Deformation Zone. The deformation zone itself is a barren land. There's nothing in it, but it's the splays off it that carry the gold mineralization. And just to the south of the Fenelon property, there's about maybe an 1,000-meter gap before the deformation zone exists. And in there's potentially east-west running splays with which this Area 51 corridor intersects. And he said, we should find out what's going on. So in mid-July, they launched a 2-hole program, not very deep, just to see what's going on. And then they quickly expanded that to 4 holes, and they are now awaiting assays. And what's interesting, when companies test a theory, they slink away and wait for the results and then trumpet, hey, we got something great. In this case, Darren Wagner and the corporate development VP, John Fuchs, they're out there telling everybody, hey, you should pay attention to us. We call this Area 52 corridor. We think that there's something going on here, and obviously they have probably seen some visible gold in the core and realized that what Wallbridge is getting on the Fenelon property in its Area 51 corridor, they've got something similar going on, and they haven't even yet tackled drilling that sort of 4 kilometers of strike, which they think this could be a clone setting for the detour system itself. It's all under swamp and overburden. It's never been drilled. It's been mapped as a metasediments, when in fact it may not be that at all. It's just lazy mappers guessing what it is. So we have a situation here where it's an optionality play. The Bug Lake and Martiniere West project will deserve more attention when gold starts rising, but they also have the potential for a discovery that becomes part of what Wallbridge is developing at the Fenelon. They're still doing the sort of underground drilling and delineation of the main discovery zone on the Fenelon property, but there's a whole new discovery off to the west that's evolving, and it looks like Balmoral Resources itself has a piece of this. And the company's also got other projects. It's picked up the Rum group of claims east of the Lac Rocher nickel deposit in sort of northwest of the Chibougamau area of Quebec. So they've got other things going on. They do have, several $1 million still in the treasury. They're a bit of a market orphan. Darren Wagner is by far the largest visible shareholder at about 3.5 million shares, and they do have 165 million shares fully diluted, TSX listed, and so it's a liquid stock. It's the kind of company where this could gain traction earlier as the market early on in the cycle, as the market starts to believe we are back into a gold cycle. And so, yes, this is an example of a junior that is starting to respond to the rising gold price, and Balmoral Resources is our new Discovery Watch junior.
John, thanks a lot for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been talking with John Kaiser, his website kaiserresearch.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Discovery Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at howstreet.com. Discovery Watch is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.